What if a city could literally design its own economic future from the ground up? Well, today we're diving into the blueprint of one of the world's most dynamic cities, Dubai. We're going to explore a really fascinating academic paper that breaks down exactly how they're engineering an e-commerce revolution. So, it all kicks off with this incredibly bold vision. Dubai's goal isn't just to be another smart city. No, they're aiming to become a completely paperless, cashless, and hyper-connected society. This single massive ambition is the foundation for everything else we're about to talk about. So, how do you actually build a city of the future, right? What's the real engine powering this kind of monumental change? The research we're exploring today argues that the answer lies in two powerful, interconnected forces: innovation and e-commerce. To really get our heads around this, we're going to follow a clear path. First, we'll look at Dubai's big picture digital vision. Then we'll unpack the two key things that are making it happen. We'll check out their blueprint for innovation, see it in action in the real world, tackle the all-important sustainability question, and then finally, we'll ask, is this a model for the rest of the world? Okay, first up, Dubai's digital vision. Now, what's so interesting here is that this is not just about buying the latest shiny tech. It's a massive, top-down strategy to create an entire ecosystem where innovation isn't just a nice-to-have, it's basically required. And this slide just perfectly illustrates the sheer scale of that strategy. I mean, we're talking about foundational investments in AI, a citywide blockchain strategy, a wild plan to have a quarter of all buildings 3D printed by 2030, and the Smart Dubai initiative, which aims to make every single government interaction digital. This is a city that's actively beta testing the future for the rest of us. So you have this grand vision, but how does it actually become a reality? Well, that brings us to our next section and the core idea from this research, the two key catalysts that are really driving this transformation. The paper introduces this really crucial term, technology catalysts. Here's what it means. It's about thinking of innovation and e-commerce not as passive tools that businesses just happen to use, but as active forces that are specifically designed to speed up development and growth. It's a small shift in thinking, but it has huge consequences. So if you're going to grow this new ecosystem, you've basically got two paths. First, you have organic growth. That's building from within using your own resources. It can be slower, but it's often way more sustainable. Then you've got inorganic growth, basically buying your way into the market through mergers and acquisitions. It's faster for sure, but it's a lot riskier. This choice is absolutely critical. And this leads us to one of the paper's absolute bombshell findings. You might think it's all about big money and acquisitions, but the analysis concludes that the real strength and vibrancy of Dubai's e-commerce scene comes from fostering organic growth. It's about creating the conditions for new, homegrown companies to just spring up and succeed. This brings us to the third part of our blueprint, really understanding innovation itself. Because, not all innovation is the same, and the type you chase has massive implications for your entire strategy. To make sense of all this, the paper uses two frameworks to kind of map out innovation. Think of it like this. The first map, Type A, helps you figure out if you're solving a problem everyone already understands, or if you're exploring something totally new. The second map, Type B, looks at whether you're using old tech in a new market or inventing brand new tech for a brand new market. These maps help strategists figure out where to put their energy for the biggest possible payoff. Now, the most famous type of innovation, of course, is disruptive innovation. This is when a new technology or a new business model comes along and just completely wipes out an existing market. The paper uses the classic example. Netflix streaming made Blockbuster's video stores pretty much worthless overnight. This is the kind of powerful, game-changing force Dubai is trying to harness. Okay, that's enough theory. Let's pivot to our fourth section and see how all these ideas, organic growth, disruptive innovation, government strategy, how they actually play out on the ground in Dubai's real-life e-commerce market. And the first thing you need to wrap your head around is just the scale we're talking about. Look at that number, $10 billion in 2022 alone. This isn't some small niche sector. It's a gigantic and fast-growing part of the economy. And here's the key. This growth is not an accident, not at all. It's being actively nurtured by the government. You've got projects like Dubai Commerce City, which is a massive free trade zone built just for e-commerce, and the e-supply portal, which makes doing business with the government itself a breeze. They are literally building the infrastructure for success. So what happens when you build that kind of perfect supportive ecosystem? Well, you get this fascinating mix of players, some of the world's biggest companies working right alongside these powerful local champions that have grown up from scratch. This chart shows you some of the key players that the study looked at. You've got Amazon, which jumped into the market by buying a local platform called Souk.com. That's a classic inorganic move. But then you have Noon.com, a powerful, homegrown competitor that grew organically to challenge the global giant. It's the perfect real-world example of that whole organic versus inorganic growth thing we were just talking about. But, and this is a big but, with all this incredible growth comes a huge question, which brings us to Section 5. What about the environmental cost? All those delivery vans, all those cardboard boxes, can this kind of explosive e-commerce growth ever be truly sustainable? The paper dives into this using what are called ESG metrics. That's environmental, social, and governance. As you can see, this framework is about so much more than just carbon emissions. It's a holistic view that also looks at social things like the gender pay gap and governance issues like corporate ethics, tying it all back to the UN's bigger Sustainable Development Goals. And the research found that companies in Dubai are really taking this to heart. We're seeing real practical steps like using fully recyclable packaging, pioneering green delivery fleets, and even the rise of special e-commerce platforms like GoShopia and EvaKind that focus only on sustainable and ethical products. All right, all of this leads us to our final section. What are the big lessons from Dubai's huge experiment? Is this a model for the future that other cities can actually learn from? The paper gives a really balanced answer. The upsides are obvious: massive economic growth, a culture of innovation, and better access to goods for everybody. But there are real downsides to deal with too: that environmental footprint, the disruption to traditional retail jobs, and of course, growing cybersecurity threats. But in the end, the researchers' verdict is crystal clear. This quote from the paper sums it up perfectly. Dubai serves as a benchmark for how to do a strategic approach to digitalization. Why? Because its carefully built ecosystem has proven to be an incredibly effective incubator for e-commerce. Which leaves us with one last, really interesting thought to chew on. The blueprint is there. The results are undeniable. The real question is, how much of this success is unique to Dubai, and how much of it can actually be replicated somewhere else? In other words, can your city copy the Dubai blueprint?